Have you ever cut someone out of your life? Perhaps a friend. You know what? For the sake of this episode, let's just say friend. So, have you ever cut someone off from your life? Have you ever cut a friend off from your life? And after you cut them off from your life, months have passed and it's even turning into years. And for some reason, you miss this person. You have periods of time whereby at a particular period, you miss them so much. It almost seems as though you made a wrong decision for cutting them off and you should probably reach out to them, or even after you've cut them off consistently, you've just had this feeling at the back of your mind, this feeling of missing that particular person. Even after you've cut them off, even after you know that they did you dirty, even after you know that they being or them being in your life, I don't know which one is correct, they or them, but the presence of those people in your life, if they are actively present in your life, it causes you more harm in whichever part of your life it would be. It causes you more harm than good. Even though you're fully aware of that, there is still this feeling of we had good times. Oh, I miss this person. Oh, I can't still help but just wish and wonder how it would have been if we were still friends. If you've ever felt like this, just know that that's exactly what I'm feeling right now. This feeling is particularly disorienting because of the fact that I have released an episode a couple of episodes ago. I've released an episode talking about the lessons that I learned from the friendship breakups that I have or that I had. And it wasn't a lie at all. I had gotten lessons from these friendships. They had actually given me clarity. And I had come to understand, okay, this is why this had to happen. It had to make me understand this. I had to see reason. This had to happen for this kind of clarity to be gotten. But for the life of me, I cannot still help but miss these people that I used to be friends with. I can't still help but feel this sense of, should we call it nostalgia? This sense of, damn, I wish these people were still in my life, you know. I've been feeling this way recently, and the entire thing became a bit disorienting to me and almost annoying. Why? Because it almost felt like, or at least I believed that if I'm feeling this way, it means that I haven't gotten over these people. Because in my mind, I had felt like if you cut somebody off from your life, somebody who did you dirty, somebody who was not good for you, somebody whose presence was not bettering your life, somebody who was inherently toxic to you, you should at least be able to move on from them, whereby even if you think of them or even if you think about them, it should just be like, oh yeah, we used to be friends. My entire my entire mindset is like, if you cut off these people from your life, you're supposed to be like, when you see them or when you think about them, you're like, yeah, we used to be friends. There's nothing there, you know, life happens, you know, you have this stoic reaction to them. It's like, yeah, nothing happened. We used to be like very tight, like we did everything together, but like they fucked up and yeah, I guess life happens. I feel like that's what's supposed to happen. So the fact that I am not feeling that way and the fact that I am consistently, even recently now more than ever, feeling that way, started making me ask myself, if you really miss somebody like this, particularly somebody who you've cut off from your life, have you really gotten over them? And I think that's what we're talking about in today's episode. A couple of episodes ago, or should I even say during almost every conversation we have, I always talk about how the things that we speak on this podcast, I would always come and have the conversation with you like a pal, like a friend, and not as somebody on a high horse, somebody who will just go and gather resources and then come and say, this is what I know and this is what has been working for me. I'm not going to speak like somewhere that is on a high horse, because I am not on a high horse, walai. I am literally figuring this thing out with you as we have a conversation. And I'm only saying this because I feel like in my mind, as I was about to release this episode, or rather as I was about to record, I was thinking and I was like, Martins, what's the point of releasing an episode if you're not going to be like saying, well, this is what I figured out and this is what works for me, and if you do this, you're going to ensure that you do not miss this friend. I feel like I'm supposed to be giving some sort of advice even, or some sort of, like, there's supposed to be this sort of wisdom that I'm supposed to be pouring out into this episode. Instead, I'm releasing an episode where I'm telling you that I'm as confused as you might probably be when it comes to this, and we're going to figure this out. So that's my little disclaimer for this episode. I'm just letting you know that I do not in any way know how this episode is going to wrap up or round up. I will be figuring out with you as we go on in this episode or in this conversation. And so, to further clarify what we both have been feeling when it comes to wondering if you are really over a person, if you consistently keep on thinking about them, you know, the good times or how you miss them, I decided to do a bit of a research. And by research, I mean I searched on Google and I found a website which looks legit enough. This sounds like something that somebody who hosts a podcast that is getting information from an illegal site would say. It looks really legit enough, guys. Yeah, but this one looks really legit enough, and I think the information is good enough, but I do not know how to pronounce such a website. The website is pronounced Gausk Queen, I think. It's spelled Geaux Queen.com, right? This particular post is a blog by Lainey Higgins. Don't know who she is, don't know if she is even a qualified professional, but by the time we dive into what Lainey wrote, we can then use our common sense to figure out whether what she's saying is making sense and is quite applicable to this situation. And so the title of this blog post by this very legit website says, "It's okay to miss the friend you cut off." And I'll just summarize it so that it doesn't become an audiobook. So it says, honestly, it means you're human. I mean, I think this is answering the questions like, if is it normal to miss people who you cut off? Like, does it mean that you haven't gotten over them and all of that? So it says, honestly, it means you're human. We are going to miss the experiences, the relationships, and things and people in our lives that brought us joy. You might see something in a store that reminds you of the trip you took with them, or a photo memory might pop up on social media, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, damn, I really miss such and such. And again, all of this is okay. When you miss someone, acknowledge that feeling. I think our first instinct might be to bury it, stuff it down, and pretend it isn't there, because we tell ourselves that we aren't allowed to miss that person. We remind ourselves of what they did to us as a way to close the door and tell ourselves that it's unacceptable for us to feel that way. I think this rings true for me because whenever I feel this emotion of, oh, I'm missing this, my friends, oh, I'm missing this person I cut off, I almost feel bad if I were to now indulge in the good memories because there's a reason why I cut this person off, right? And you might have also felt this thing whereby you remember the good times you had with somebody, and then you immediately remember the bad thing that happened that led to you distancing yourself or cutting off from that person. And it almost feels stupid to engage with the nostalgia. It's like, why should I now start marinating in the good memories whereby this was something so messed up that led to us cutting off? And so you can then start suppressing it whenever it comes up. But apparently, this blog is saying acknowledge the feeling that your first instincts might be to bury it, but and pretend that it's not there, but you're actually allowed to miss that person. It says, honestly, it makes us feel worse. That's in respect to burying the feelings. It continues by saying, the reality is that burying our feelings doesn't make us stop missing them. We will miss them again. And if we continue through the cycle of ignoring the feeling every time it comes up, then we aren't really solving anything. No matter how much we try to ignore this feeling because of what happened with our friend, it doesn't mean that they weren't part of our lives. They played a role in our lives, in our stories, in who we are, and in who we've become. Minimizing their role by ignoring our feelings doesn't mean that they or the feelings don't exist. Missing someone is a part of grieving. No, this friend didn't die, but this is still a loss of someone who played a significant role in your life. Even though you made the decision to cut contact, you are still learning to live without them, and that takes time. You will go through a variety of emotions, and missing them is one of them. And it doesn't matter if it's been 1 year, 5 years, or even 20 years since after you've cut them off. That grief is something that you carry with us, or we should carry with us, because their friendship mattered to us at a point in our lives. That's actually so beautiful. That's actually so freaking beautiful, especially the last part whereby it says, and it doesn't matter if it's been 1 year, 5 years, or 20 years. Why I said this rings true for me again, and I bloody pray that it rings true for you as you're listening to me. I bloody pray that during this conversation it rings true for you. But for me, with the friends that I've got contacts with, it's not even something of that happened recently. Even when I had released the episode about the lessons I had learned from the friendship breakups I went through those friendship breakups a while back before even releasing that particular episode. So even now, it's much more a while back, if we can say that. And so the fact that it's now in years, I'm now asking myself, is it really bad? Like, is it some sort of attachment issue that I still feel, not severely, but there's a place in my heart whereby I still miss this person. There's a place in my heart whereby some part of me still cherishes the good memories. And it's like, these years have passed. I'm supposed to think about them less. I still do. It's not as if I think about them every single day. But whenever they come up in my mind, they come up heavily. They come up with so much emotion, and it almost feels like it's a bad thing. It almost feels like you're not really moving on. You're supposed to move on and forget. But apparently, I think especially when it comes to friendships, the fact that they play the crucial role in your life, it's apparently normal. And I think for these friends, I didn't even think that I was going to lose them. Like I had already planned forever with them. I had planned my life around them. You know those kind of friends whereby you've planned that your children are going to meet these people, you guys are going to grow together, you guys are going to grow your careers together. You know, friendship breakups, nobody plans it. Nobody plans that, okay, in the next 3 to 4 years, would actually break up. You're already building your life, you're building your future, you're sharing your goals, you're sharing you're vulnerable around those people, you know. And so when that just goes out, apparently you're still learning to live without these people who held such a significant space in your heart. So apparently all of this is normal. All of this is normal. Thank God I'm not a weird boy. Thank God. Thank God. But it just makes so much sense. It just makes so much sense. And then it concludes that particular paragraph by saying, trust and believe. If we can still remember and feel the sting of our first heartbreak, of our first crush, then the person who was writing this blog was now put it in paragraph, in parentheses rather, which is like a bracket. Mine was in kindergarten decades ago. Then he closes the paragraph and says, then we can definitely still know the feeling of loving and care for this friend. So basically, the person is saying that if you can still remember the sting of your first heartbreak or your first crush, then you can definitely still remember the love and care that you had for this friend, which is so true, which is so freaking true. You know, as this thing was, as I just read that last paragraph, I just remembered something, which was like the first crush I had. Ah, God. I don't even know if this one qualifies to call it a crush. But I do remember the first few instances whereby I can call it a crush and how horrible everything went. So I'm going to digress a bit. I'm going to leave this topic a bit to give you this gist because this is a wonderful conversation and the thought of this thing is exciting and embarrassing at the same time. So let me just share it with you. So I was in GSS 2 that time. Yeah, I was in GSS 2. And the school I was in, they did not have their own building. I feel like most schools in Nigeria, they do not own the building they stay in. And this particular building that this school was in an apartment. Like it was in a rented apartment with multiple houses. And so your classroom could be in the living room and you would have a kitchen in your class simply because the entire building structure was not built for a school. I'm just giving you background information. It's very important in this story I'm about to tell you. So I was in JSS 2 year. And then there was this girl who I used to have a crush on. I think almost everybody knew. But almost everybody knew actually. What am I saying? Almost everybody knew that I used to have a crush on this girl. God, I'm getting close to this and I feel embarrassed a bit. But I will continue telling you. Let's digress a bit. So we were trying to do a play. I think we had free period and wanted to do a play. Basically, wanted to act drama as kids who didn't have anything that they were doing. We're like, you know, let's act a play, let's act a play, let's act drama. And in the drama we wanted to act, the girl who I had a crush on was supposed to pick between me and one other guy who would play the role of her husband. And in my mind, I was like, this is it. This is the moment. This is when they are going to like. This will show everybody. Like this, to me, it was a moment of truth. But if she picks me, wallahi, my dreams have come true. God, God, I was praying. I was like, this is it. Like in my mind, I was like, my stomach was just turning me. My stomach had turned into like a washing machine. I was just waiting, and this other guy were just checking. And you're asking this girl, all right, pick who you want to play the role of your husband for you in this. So imagine us just as two small children, barely like 12. But like, pick who played the role of your husband in this drama we're about to act. And I was waiting, I was anticipating, God, I remember feeling this. I was like, God, everybody was now looking. And this time around, it was not just our class, you know, there were some other classes who were like a bit invested in what was going on in the class. And as we were waiting, and as I was looking into this, my crush, and I was like, God, please, God, do this one for me. I swear, if you do this one, I will not sing again. This girl now picked the other guy. Everybody was now like, hey, ho, ho, ho. They knew. Do you remember when I told you that people knew that I had a crush on this girl? They knew and they're like, Chai, Guy Martin, sorry. Guy Martin, sorry, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, yo. And then I was like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. There's no problem. There's no, see, it's fine. Oh, you stop. And I was even getting like offended, like, stop telling me that. What do you mean, sorry? Sorry, it's fine. It's fine. And as I'm coming, just excuse me. And I walked into the kitchen. Now, just so that this thing does not sound weird, I've already given you background story that the classes were like in a house, and so there was kitchen in the class. And so I walked into the kitchen and I closed the door and I locked it and I cried. And I cried and I cried and I cried and oh God, God, this feels so sad. This feels so sad. I wish I could just give the younger me a hug. But this, I felt like I had lost something. I was crying in the kitchen sink and I was washing my eyes. And by the time I came out, my eyes were red. And I was like, all right, let's continue this drama. God, that was so sad. That was so sad. So yes, I still remember my first heartbreak of my first crush. And that made me take a break from crushing on people for a while. But yeah, I think in summary of what this particular paragraph, let's go back to the main topic of this episode. Oh my goodness, I said this episode wouldn't become very long, and here we are, 17 minutes in. You know what, let's just dive in. We'll probably round it up very soon. But I think in conclusion, what this paragraph is saying that it's human. What this paragraph is saying in essence is that it's human to feel nostalgia and it's human to miss people who were once a very important part of your life, people who you had planned so much of your life around, people who you had trusted and you were vulnerable around, and they played a very important role to you. It says to feel the emotions when they come and acknowledge that, oh yeah, you feel this and not shut it down. And then he referenced the childhood or first heartbreak thing, which I can definitely affirm. And then he finally gives us a thing to do, a list of things to do. He says, I miss them. What should I do? He gave us a couple of things that we can do whenever the feelings of nostalgia come about this friend who you've ultimately cut off from your life, and you can't reach out to them, who you've ultimately cut off from your life. It says, number one, journal about your feelings. Number two, look at old videos or pictures. He further explains this second one by saying, reminiscing about memories can bring us joy, even if it's about somebody who is no longer in our lives. Sometimes traveling down memory lane can offer a moment of happiness or peace. It can be a break from the everyday and remind us of lighter times in our lives or the moments we'd always cherish. This one is crazy because you see that Snapchat memories when you enter there and then it just reminds you 6 years ago and it brings up somebody you don't talk to at all. I don't know how that one does not give me peace. It almost even triggers the bad feelings, the whole sad reminiscing on the friendship. So I don't know. Maybe this would like be true for you, whereby if you look at the old pictures, you feel peace. But definitely looking at old pictures definitely doesn't give me any peace. It says share your stories with others, talk to somebody about how you feel. So basically, if you find yourself missing this person often and you don't know what to do, maybe you could talk to somebody who you trust, like a good friend, a significant other, or a therapist who could maybe even give you much more perspective to consider, especially if it's much more severe for you. Maybe they could give you reasons why you're having a hard time making peace with the fact that you and this person are no longer together. Maybe it could be something much more severe and deeper. And I think that's it for today's episode. I think the purpose of this episode is for both of us to actually figure out whether it's normal to miss people who you've cut off from your life, people who were bad per se in a particular phase of your life that made you cut them off. I think from the entire thing, it rings true that from the entire thing that we've looked at in my head, I think it rings true that people could be good people generally, but they could do some really fucked up shit that could have messed with you so bad that you guys are not friends anymore. And so it helps to consider the fact that yes, they did something bad, but it doesn't immediately negate the good things that they did for you. And I think that also brings into the perspective of the fact that in as much as there's nostalgia, you should also be careful and heavily consider before you decide you should reach out to those people. Because I feel like sometimes when you now start feeling almost even guilty for cutting those people off, there's this urge or even a tendency to want to reconnect, to want to be like, you know what, me feeling this way is probably a sign that I should get back to these people. Maybe they even feel the same way. Maybe this is the universe talking and we should just get back together again. Meanwhile, they still could not be good for you. So maybe you could really think about it and decide whether the closure you would want to get maybe is a closure that would be internal and an acceptance that you would find better people. As I'm talking to you about this, I'm talking to myself too. Because admittedly, I'm kind of guilty of that too. Whereby, a situation whereby you miss somebody and you're thinking of the good times and the good times are overwhelming you and you're like, oh my God, this is a sign. This is definitely a sign that I should reach out to them and maybe get some sort of closure. Who knows? Maybe it's a sign that we need to reconnect or rekindle this friendship. Meanwhile, you do not need that. I've been guilty of that and I've done it multiple times, and it's kind of come back and it's beat me in the ass multiple times. And so this entire thing is for the both of us. So I think this entire episode answers the question that if you miss somebody you've cut off from your life and you're really having these waves of nostalgia hitting you, it doesn't mean that you haven't moved on, because you could move on from something that happened years ago and it would still be human to feel these emotions because they were once a part of you, a significant part of you, and you can acknowledge it and see it for what it was. Maybe it would even help to remember both sides. This was good, but this was something messed up, and this was how we cut off. And it was good while it lasted. You appreciate the good times, but you also acknowledge the bad times, and you look forward to better friendships ahead. Yeah. This is a chillaxed, chill episode, to be very honest. Like, there's not much going on. You could hear me even stutter because I'm just chill talking with you. But thank you for listening to me. I'm really sorry about the messed up schedule. For you guys that are listening consistently, I'm really sorry that the schedule has been really, really messed up. I would make it up to you by releasing an episode next week. So it's almost going to be a weekly episode. I'm not going to waste any on that time. There's going to be an episode dropping next week, and then we'll return back to our usual schedule. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to me. It's always wonderful to hang out with you. Okay. And that's all I've got for today's episode. Thank you guys for listening. Like I've said multiple times already, it's always wonderful. It's always freaking wonderful. Like, it's bloody wonderful to have a freaking conversation with you. Don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you're listening. If you're listening on Spotify, follow the podcast on Spotify. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, I think there's a way to follow. I don't really use Apple Podcast. I mostly use Spotify. Like, I use Spotify for every single thing. So I'm more used to that application. But if you're using Apple Podcast to listen, definitely give the podcast a follow. If you're listening on any other podcast platform like Podbean, Jollof Radio platform, and the other likes, make sure to follow, make sure to rate the podcast. On Spotify, you could do that by just clicking the three dots, I think, beside the follow button or near the settings, and then you click rate the podcast and you rate. If you're listening on Spotify, you can also click the notification bell beside the follow button, as that would give you a notification anytime a new episode drops. And then I would really appreciate it if you share this episode with one person, because if you're still listening to me talk by this time, let's be honest, you're definitely enjoying this episode, as chill as it is, and you're definitely kind of in love with me and you're obsessed and we should like get married or something. But you're enjoying this episode. The point being that, and if you can share this episode wherever it is you hang out on your social media, be it on your WhatsApp, you could share it on your WhatsApp status. If you hang out more on Instagram, share it on your Instagram story. Or tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to listen, as that helps. And yeah, it really be good to have more people joining on the conversation. Check out the Almost 20 podcast on Instagram at Almost 20 podcast. Check out me, your host, on Instagram. Should I stop saying that, me, your host? I should probably just say check out me. But check out me, your host. That's to be decided. Check out me, your host, on Instagram at _Guy Martins. Check out me on Instagram. No, I've said that before. Oh God. Check out me on TikTok at _Guy Martins. I will soon start creating content there. Okay. And would hang out not just on the podcast through an audio conversation, but would also hang out physically, virtually, yeah, whatever that is. We seen each other basically face to face. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.